Welcome back. We thank you for staying tuned to the conversation on Lagos Television. As Abimbola said, the month of September is a month of awareness for childhood cancer that was discussed earlier on the show. And now we'll be looking at sickle cell treatment and management. Of course, the month of September is also the month for the awareness of sickle cell disorder. Despite its prevalence, many still lack a clear understanding of the challenges faced by individuals living with sickle cell disorder. Our conversation today will focus on the complexities of this condition and the realities of individuals living with sickle cell. Joining us on the conversation today, we have Dr. Frank Aholufo, I hope I got that right, the Chief Operating Officer, GNI Healthcare Limited. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a
and
pleasure.
Also, we have with us here Abayomi Oyelami. I hope I got that right too. Communication Officer, Sickle Cell Advocacy and Management Initiative. You're welcome to the conversation. So let's begin. Sickle cell disorder, because before we came on air, I was asking, is it sickle cell disease, is it sickle cell anemia, and you said sickle cell disorder. So can you briefly explain what sickle cell disorder is all about and how it affects the body?
All right, thank you very much for having us here today. So sickle cell disorder is a group of inherited blood disorders. So this is strictly blood, and it is strictly related to the red blood cells inside the blood. Not the white blood cells, not the blood platelet. It's strictly related to the red blood cells. So there's actually a particular compound in the red blood cell called the hemoglobin. So everybody is expected to have a pair, that's two, of the hemoglobin that is contributed by the father and the mother. So whether you know the father or the mother, they have actually contributed something to you. So that pair is what we call genotype. So the genotype, sickle cell is now is a variant of the genotype that we have. So we have the usual genotype, which is AA, but then we now have variants too. And one of the variants is sickle cell, which is, we have SS, we have CC, we have SC.
We have AS.
We have AS. AS is, we say they are the ones who carry the sickle cell trait. Okay, so what does it mean? When we say somebody carries a sickle cell trait, it means that they don't live with sickle cell themselves, but they have the trait. And that means that they can transfer that trait to the next generation. And so if any one of them transfers that trait to the next generation, the person that they will be having will now live with that condition. And that condition is now genotype SS, genotype SC, and then we have several others like genotype SD, because sickle cell is not restricted to just Africans. I know we've heard a lot about it's just black, it's just Africans. No. People in the Mediterranean, people in the Arab world, and even as we travel all around now, we are jackbarring and everything. So we have people scattered taking sickle cell all around the world.
So you said we have SS, we have SC, we have
AS, we have CC.
No, the AS are the carriers.
AS are the
so
AS and AC.
Okay, AS and AC are the carriers. So anyone who is AC does not have the disorder.
They don't have the disorder, but they can also transfer the trait.
Okay. And SS, SC,
they live with the condition.
They live with the condition, and it's now looking at the severity of the condition. Is it all on the same level, or the one with SS experiences more pain than the one with SC?
Okay, so when we talk about people living with sickle cell now, it means that they have the shape of the red blood cells looks like, for when we talk to children in nursery school, primary school, we say it looks like a C, A, B, C. Yes, so C.
Sickle.
Yes, it's sickle. Because where did we get the word sickle cell from actually? The people who discovered it, they couldn't find a word that could fit it. And so they looked at the farm and they found an implement, a farm implement that is called sickle. And that's where we got the name sickle cell. So, and that's where we now say, okay, for children, we can tell them it looks like a C, where usually it's supposed to be like a O. But now it looks like a C. Yes.
Okay,
and so that is where the challenge now comes, because it's now not fully formed like a O. It means that the flow of blood in the body will be quite challenged. And that's where the problem, anything that comes with sickle, that's where it comes from, basically.
Okay, you are a doctor.
Yes.
Now, he said something that it is inherited.
Yes, that's correct.
And we talked about that those with AS and AC are carriers. So how important is genetic counseling for families with a history of sickle cell disorder?
I think the importance cannot be understated. The realities are that the best way to manage sickle cell is to prevent it in the first place. All right, so if you understand how it is formed, then it becomes possible to reduce the number of cases, reduce the number of people and warriors we have dealing with sickle cell disease. All right, so the simple basics he has described quite excellently. Every human being carries the genes, normal genes, but we also have some genes that are defective. Those are the ones he has mentioned, where you have the S, the C, and the other variants that occur. All right. So if everyone knows number one, every person should know their own blood group, your genotype. You need to know it. You need to understand those numbers. You need to understand that description. Once you do, at the time when you're then having relationships and you're getting to the point where you might start to give birth to children, then you understand that if you are AA, then whatever the defect is, the most that can happen by statistics is one of your children may have a trait to carry, all right? Because your partner may not be an AS, or so it's fine.
That's AA marrying AS.
Yes, but if you are AA, and you are married to an AA, then of course the tree that you can form will always be AA.
Some people say that that's unfair. AA shouldn't marry AA.
It is a bit unfair. So because you already have those who have AS, AC, and the likes. So anyone who has an AA can literally marry anybody else. However, if you check on your blood genotype says that you're an AC, you can marry anybody in as much as those people are AA.
So AC cannot marry AS.
I love that.
Yes. So someone who also is an AS, feel free. There are about 200 million Nigerians. Feel free. Just make sure that you do a test. So one of the things that I think is applaudable is that I've realized that certain religious institutions have keyed into this to say that when you come for marriage counseling, one of the things you must do is you must have your blood group, blood genotype checked. But I don't think it should be restricted to just religious organizations. I think that when you are in school, it's something that you should know, so that from childhood you know and you can prepare yourself.
Some schools, it's part of the requirements when you're registering.
Exactly.
In fact, that's what we advocate, that as soon as children are getting into primary school, we get their date of birth, we get their birth certificate, we get all of those things. Let's make blood genotype, blood groups, let's make it part of the requirements as they enter. In fact, it makes it easy for the teachers to also know that the kind of children I have here, I have someone live with sickle cell, I have someone. And in case you may want to the parent is not around, and then you need to transfuse a child. If you don't know the blood group, you can't go ahead. So, but if we have all those things in the record, it makes life easy.
So, and just as an addition to that, is you did mention the issue of counseling. Counseling becomes important because even parents need to understand. So if you understand ab initio as a person growing up, it becomes easy to educate your children. It becomes easy to educate other people. But then you can always get counseling at the hospital. You can actually get counseling with your HMO. You can get counseling. Counseling now is available. And I understand that there are NGOs, there are groups that will give you that level of information. You can go online now, you're not restricted. So counseling is critical. Everybody needs to understand it. You don't need to fear it.
It's not a death sentence.
No, you don't need to fear it. You need to just understand. And once you do, like he quite rightly mentioned, if the school understands and they have a record, then they know there are certain things they won't do. You'll be sure that your environment is created for every child. You don't assume every child is AA and then your environment is the way it is. You have to prepare. If you have a child that might require emergency care, you need to even understand. Even the teachers would then need to be counseled what to do. Even regulation, how airy is your classrooms and things like that has to be ready. So
I heard a story of a woman who said she was AA and her husband was also AA, but they gave birth to 2 children who are sickle cell who are living with sickle cell or who are sickle cell warriors. So then I began to ask, is it possible that the genes can change?
Okay. Genes don't change.
Okay.
Well, okay. let's not take away the part of miracles, but when we say something is a miracle, it means it's few and far between. That's what a miracle means. If it's miracles are, if it's like commonplace, then everybody should just be picking miracles on the road and all of that. So miracles are few and far between. So for genes are the core, the basics of a person. So they are not expected to change.
No, you didn't get my question.
Yes.
She said she's AA.
Yes.
The husband is also AA,
yes,
but
so
they gave birth to children with sickle
living with sickle cell. Yes.
So I'm sure he's leading to.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So genes don't change. Now it's either that maybe they didn't where they got tested. Issues with incorrect results, and we have quite a large number of that in our society. And then some people also hide their truths. They don't want to. Okay, I'm in love. We just have to find a way through this thing, and then they go ahead and. So we have cases like that. So one of the challenges that we have in our society now is that issue of incorrect results. So that's why we tell people, okay, do it once, do it twice, do it thrice, do it as much as you can. In fact, for people who have issues with results being conflicting, we tell them there's a test that you can tell you to go do. It's called hemoglobin profiling. Hemoglobin profiling will even gives you percentages. So for example, I live with sickle cell now. It doesn't mean that all the blood cells in my body are SS. There are certain percentages that are A, there are certain values that are F. F is the hemoglobin F. That's what we are born with as children. Okay. So there are certain percentages like that. So hemoglobin profiling will give you the breakdown. So the highest percentage now becomes your genotype. So for people who have conflicting results like that, we just tell them, go do hemoglobin profiling. That gives us a definitive result. Yes.
So with this that you have said, awareness, how important is awareness, and do you think that people are really aware of these things?
Okay, so can you be over-aware? Never. I think that there should be consistency and constancy of awareness. I don't think there should be a time when government should say we've made enough conversation about this, or this group has done enough, it's okay. It's never going to be okay. Don't forget that every 30 years, generations change. Then don't forget that people are constantly moving from place to place. So the people that heard the information here in Lagos are probably now in Abia State, and those in Abia. So there's constant evolving of the populace. So you have to continue to make constant mention of the things that are critical for people to know. And I want to just state also regarding this story, like you said, it's commonplace. It's something where you also have to be, there's something called standardization. Interestingly, this scenario happened to me. In my university days, I did the first testing. My first testing was in university, 200 level, I think. And I had one genotype. Okay. And I carried that
and you said
until marriage counseling, and I did the test, and it was different. I contested it. It's not possible. It doesn't change now. So, but by the time we did another testing, the second result was, now, if you look at, now I have more knowledge, At that time, it was just a small basic lab in the school where the test was done. So for all you care, all sorts of conditions were not met. In chemistry, then we'll say STP, standard temperature and pressure. There are conditions required. There are standards to be met. So labs themselves need to become more and more conscious that we need to hit a critical standard, because the basic knowledge must be correct. It's dangerous when someone has carried knowledge that is AA, gets married, believing is AA, only to find out after the delivery of the child that he's actually AC or AS or AD. Because any, like you mentioned, any deficiency, all that deficiency requires is for the second partner to have a sickle cell gene. Once that partner has a sickle cell gene with your own deficiency, the child will, the likelihood of one or so of your children having it becomes higher.
Okay, so also now that we're talking about the healthcare system, sort of, what gaps exist in our healthcare system regarding sickle cell, and how can this be addressed? Let me start with you. You are in the medical line.
All right, I think I will first of all praise our healthcare system. There's a lot of bashing of the healthcare system. The reality is that this healthcare system is dealing with 200 million or more people. Now that's one. Two, you also must also factor in the fact that there are standards, WHO standards that say, or even United Nations standards that say, this is the quality of funding that should come into your health system for this level of population and all of that, which Nigeria wonderfully signed and agreed to, which is not, is far from what the experience is. So these are things that you must factor in. Then don't also forget that there's this constant brain drain. Now we call it Jackpot syndrome. But before Jackpot syndrome, there was brain drain. It's constantly happening. Doctors, nurses going. So if you go to our health system right now, the gaps in personnel is there. Because if you get to some hospitals that are big teaching hospitals, there's a gap in terms of generations. So you might find somebody who is a doctor who is like in his 50s, and you will not find anyone in their 40s, anyone in their 30s. The next group of doctors you will see are 22, 23, 24, 25. Now, there's nothing wrong with them, they are doctors, but then they create an experience gap. Do you mind if I share a story?
It's okay.
Okay, so I had this story and two stories.
Okay.
So I will not share the locations. These two women were pregnant. These two men were warriors living with sickle cell, pregnant. Now, I believe in one of the cases, the doctor looked at the woman, you're fine. She's gotten to about term, 36 weeks. You're fine, go back home, rest, come back in 2 weeks' time. We'll do your CS for you and you'll be fine. For whatever reason, he did not profile the woman as being someone who may not come back in exactly 2 weeks. She came back perhaps. 2 weeks came, as an HMO, we were called. We've not seen this patient, so we started call the, before you know what's happening, 3-4 weeks, she came back. Again, it's normal term. 36 to 4 weeks is 40 weeks. It's normal, nothing wrong with that. Challenge is that at that time, her body was now under more pressure. Surgery was successful, baby came out, lady recovered. 24 hours later, we have no lady anymore. These are situations that, quote unquote, are avoidable. However, that gap, now that doctor has gone through that experience. That experience will live with him, not just him, his hospital, the people there, the nurses. He's gone through that experience. It will live with him forever. Because as I'm relating it, I'm living it forever. Now, the next set of patients who come, he has that required experience to say, I've gone through this before. The risk, this is the risk involved. It's no more theoretical risk. This is the risk involved. He's better able to determine what to do. Now, if that doctor has gone, and we now have a new set of doctors that have never gone through that, that is the experience gap that can exist when personnel keep changing. In terms of capacity gap, I think we have a lot of experienced doctors, nurses qualified in capacity. However, there's still capacity gap in terms of there are equipments, new technologies, new things, new drugs coming up that we don't necessarily have at the time when it's cutting edge. Do you understand? Because they're not developed in Nigeria. Something is developed in the US. The US would have enjoyed it for a couple of years. It will move to Europe for a couple of years before we start to. So these are the kinds of gaps that will exist. Then you then have the dichotomy between government hospital, private hospital. Private hospital, the likelihood of you having a multi-specialist team able to manage, because you will need not just your GP, you probably need a family physician, you need a hematologist, you will probably, at certain points, complications may come in, nephrologists may be required, different kinds of people may be required. In a private hospital, a lot of them are doing a lot, trying to get these specialists to be available, and I give kudos to a lot of them, but sometimes that gap can exist, driving cost. So the third thing would now be cost. There's a cost gap. Managing sickle cell is in itself, for most parents, for most warriors, is a challenge because it's costly.
You have highlighted quite a number of things. So let me come to you now. You are a sickle cell warrior. How do you handle crisis when it comes?
How do I handle crisis when it comes? Okay, so crisis finally comes when you are in the small hours of the night, like 12 a.m., 1 a.m., when you cannot say, okay, let me quickly go to the hospital. So, however, so that's why we have some things that we call the home treatment that you can just take while you just manage through the night, then you go to the hospital the next day. So crisis means that we have pains all over the body, the joints of the body, the back, every part of the body can have that challenge. So what do? One of the first things we do is we take some medications. So there are some pain medications that we take based on the kind of body that you have. For example, because we have some people, because they have what's it called now, ulcer, stomach ulcer, so they can't take certain pain medications. So we prescribe different types of drugs for such conditions. So pain medications are actually the basic way to manage crisis. So once you take it, and just quickly find your way to the hospital. So there are some that they are just in a few hours you'll be fine. You can, okay, let me manage this myself. But then you find that some are already lasting to 12 hours, 14 hours, almost a day. Then you need to call your doctors and find a way to the hospital so that you can be well managed.
You talked about some medications. Are these medications readily available, and how affordable are they? Okay,
so they are
considering our condition now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually very expensive now. Very expensive now because, okay, for an average person living with sickle cell, apart from the food you eat, all those regular things that everybody needs to do, eat well, drink your water, and all of those things that everybody needs to do, you also have to take what we call routine medications. So when we say something is routine, it means that nobody needs to tell you. The same way nobody reminds you to eat your food is the same way you must not be reminded to take this medication. So we have drugs like folic acid, multivitamins, and all of those things. Those are already those are already involving some cost. Now we now talk about, okay, if you have pains, what are the medications you are supposed to take? Then if you now have certain complications that come with sickle cell, what are the? So those levels are actually very they are very cost intensive.
All right, let's talk about nutrition and lifestyle. Are there specific dietary plans for sickle cell warriors? Are there particular lifestyle? What are the do's and don'ts?
Okay. All right, so we say that there's nothing like, there's no food that I shouldn't take. Okay. Just like every other person, you know that balanced diet is very important for you. So if you can, as much as you can, as much as you can afford it, take into consideration the economics. So please do. And then water is very important for us living with sickle cell. In fact, we say water therapy is like one of the trademarks for us as people living with sickle cell, because water helps to push the the blood cells through the blood vessels. So it's very important. So we prescribe for adults 4 liters and upwards. For children, based on the age, we now grade it for them. So 2 liters, 3 liters, depending on the age of the child. So from there, we now talk about healthy lifestyle. So we say sickle cell does not affect us the same way. So we have some people who are very energetic, they can go high, and you even be shocked that are these people living with sickle cell? Because contrary to the opinion that we might have had, these people are just people that will just stay in the hospital all their lives. No, it's not like that. We actually live our lives. We go to school, we go to university, we go to NYSC, we travel, we do all of those things. So we become doctors, we become whatever we want to become. We have sportsmen, actually. We have music stars, we have everybody in the sickle cell community. So know yourself and look at what are the triggers that when I see these triggers, I know, okay, this is what it means. So try and stay away from those things. Try and stay away from those triggers. So some people say don't stay in AC, but how will you do it if you are in the media industry, for example? You would have to. So but get sweaters, get whatever you need to get. And
coping mechanism.
Coping mechanism.
Okay,
yes.
so what would you like to add to it concerning lifestyle and nutrition?
I think I could almost stay listening to him for so I think I'll jump in from the places he has mentioned. I think that a lot of people actually don't pay cognizance to something as simple as drinking water. You know, we take it for granted. Now, for those who are in the sickle cell community, you cannot take it for granted. But even people who don't have sickle cell, you shouldn't take it for granted. Now, like he mentioned, water, he mentioned the quantities. Now, don't forget that 70% minimum of our body is water. So every time you don't take enough, your body will do what it normally does. It will take out water as waste that goes out. It will retain water where it wants to retain water, right? Then when you are in the heat, and don't forget we are in Nigeria, you will sweat a lot, so you are losing water. So when you don't replace it, there's dehydration. So you need to have a lot of fluids that you take. So water, but I will also add, that's a good place to also have a lot of fruits, a lot of fresh vegetables, but water. He mentioned that for children, at least 2 liters. I think that you benchmark, what is 2 liters? We're on TV, so I'm not going to just say 2 liters. Sachets of pure water. So 1 sachet is half a liter. So 2 sachets is 1 liter. So 4 sachets. So everyone who is listening, if you are not taking up to 4 sachets in a day, you are underhydrating. Whether you are living with
whatever you are living with
or not, you are underhydrated. So typically, I believe every adult who is not into sports and very physical activity should take between 2 to 3 minimum. All right. So when you now deal with those living with, it's good that they hit that 3 liters minimum and then move a bit above. Then those who are constantly in the sun and all that. So let's leave the dehydration. We've talked about that. When it comes to food, there's nothing they cannot eat, but there are certain things that is good that they, if they can, and that's why I mentioned the fruits, the vegetables. Why? It will continue to give them the vitamins they need. We're going to increase their water intake, and it will help them easy to digest, right? Like you mentioned, as you know yourself, you also should start to know your environment, all right? If you are the kind of person that one of the things you normally notice is that you have shortness of breath. You have to ensure that where you are is well hydrated. Don't wait and stay in a crowd until you start to literally you are choking, you are breathless. No. If you notice this crowd is getting beyond my capacity, move away, go to the edges of the crowd, or better still, be in front of the crowd, lead the pace. So these are things you should take note of. Your work schedule, please work. Because I think that is even disadvantageous to you to be idle. The more you work, the more supple your joints will likely be, the healthier you are likely to be. So being active, don't just be sedentary. Those things help. So those are the kind of lifestyles. Choose your poison. You want to you want to be a sports person, be. But like you said, if like you are in the industry where ACs are on, enjoy it, make sure that your clothes are thick, covered properly at night, which I think is even more important. Cover yourself appropriately. These things help. They're just basics, really. Identify your numbers, because like you mentioned,
what do you mean by numbers?
Every warrior, sickle cell warrior, is a human being. That means they could have other conditions. All right, so if you notice, for instance, that you are starting to have a fever, don't waste time. Treat it early.
Okay.
You are not a candidate for, I will wait for 24 hours to see what it will become. No, treat it immediately. You have any other chronic condition, in addition, manage it appropriately, manage it properly. I would always advise, and this is where I think, permits me, some people have a challenge going to hospitals. An HMO helps, all right? Because then you're not always thinking about cost. All right? Always go to the hospital. You have a challenge. You've taken whatever it is you want to take as a preventive or emergency medication, or therapy. Go to the hospital. Let a doctor see you. Let somebody examine you. The numbers I was talking about, you know your blood pressure, know it, and monitor it. From time to time, monitor your blood sugar. The older you get, make sure you do your mammograms. You make sure you do, when I say older, at least 40 and above. Make sure you do your pap smears. Be conscious, because when you are healthy and you manage all the other things, you know that all you are then dealing with per time, because it's not going to be every time. It's just sickle cell.
All right, my colleague over there has a question for you.
Okay, my question is actually for Abayomi. So I'd like to ask, for parents of people living with sickle cell, oftentimes the attention is on the warrior themselves, and of course everyone forgets there are people who also have been there for them. Would you recommend that they also seek support system for their own mental wellness as well?
Fantastic question. So we call people who are around people living sick, we call them caregivers, parents, siblings, everybody. In fact, sibling rivalry even comes up sometimes. Like, oh, why are you always paying attention to Abayomi? Yeah, is he the only one? All things like that. So, but we have to get everybody involved. Let them know that, okay, this is what's happening to this person. Then for parents, please, yes, we know you are taking care of a child. You also have health issues, because, okay, for Yoruba person, we say, a Yoruba proverb says, okay, Alison, you are taking care of the person who is sick, but even you that you are running around, you are even the sick person here, because the person who is sick is just lying down there and trusting God for help, trusting you that you are going to take care of them, but you are going all around town. So it's very important for parents to seek mental health care, and it's very important for them to be part of a support group too, and that's where NGOs and all of these people come in to support parents. They also, it's when you are well that you can take care of a child that is well, so that you don't just pour your pressure and all of your pains on the child. You are the one that is causing me pain, you are the one that is taking my money away, you are the one that is doing all. We have a lot of stories around that. So parents also need to seek care. They also need to pay attention to themselves. Very important.
There are support systems available.
Yeah, we have support systems available.
They can fall back on.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. So I wanted to also talk about, now that she raised, especially for children, how for a parent or parents who think that they are not carriers and then eventually give birth to children with sickle cell, what are the symptoms? What are the things that they say and they begin to know that this child is down with sickle cell?
Okay, so one of the earliest symptoms that we see is what we call hand and foot syndrome. Hand and foot syndrome. So the hands will begin to swell, the legs begin to swell. Those are like the very earliest things that we see. 6 months.
What stage of the child?
From around 6 months and upwards. Yes. So we start saying that. So that is like a sign that people often see, and then they go to the hospital and then they find out, oh, the child is living with sickle cell. So that's like the earliest thing. So but we are saying that there's even a test called, we have what we call newborn testing, that we can actually know from even less than 1 month, we can know if a child is living with sickle cell or not. So those are,
And sometimes you might also find fevers that you've treated and it's not getting better.
When they say the child is teething,
Whatever you think it is, and this is why I think as parents we must become careful and conscious. Children can't explain.
yeah.
My dad will say, assumption is the worst level of knowledge. Every time you assume, you're at the basest level. So if you're not sure what is going on, that's why you have hospitals. Just take the child. Every doctor very likely can identify it. And even if they cannot pinpoint it at some point, if you've gone several times, they will say, oh, why don't we do this test?
Yes.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we check this? It's just standard protocol. They will check. And then when they check, they confirm it. So I think that when you have on situations that are not fully explained or that you don't understand, you observe them with a child, take the child. It may not even be sickle cell. It could be something else.
Yeah.
So, but the earlier you, so don't just listen to old wives' tales. It must be teething. Don't let me go into that. Don't let me go into that teething thing. There's a lot of myth around teething. Everything is teething when the child is. It's not the way it is. Don't be quick to go into the Agbo syndrome. Find out first. When you know what you are dealing with, then whatever course of treatment you choose, then you can be justified, so that we don't hear stories that touch.
All right, I want us to talk about stigma and awareness. How far gone are we in the battle against stigma for those living with sickle cell?
Do you mind if I jump in before him? Because I'm sure he has live experience. I think that as a society, there's still a long way to go. There's just this thing about us: what you don't know, you don't understand, you shy away from. So we still need a lot of education because stigma is there. You then find there are people who don't want someone with sickle cell to marry their child. You don't want your child relating with another child that looks like him. No. Those things are wrong, and there are things we shouldn't allow. All right, but it comes from ignorance and people not knowing. It's not transmittable. That's the first thing you need to know. It's not because your child is playing with or your friend is playing with. Then we also need to understand that just even appreciating the energy of their fight is a blessing, because it allows you to understand that whatever you are going through, they are surviving, you can survive. So when you have friends, and usually deep experiences usually brings deep character, deep understanding. So they're going through a lot. Whatever they come out with, you also can benefit from. So I think that we need to work as a society. I'm very happy to hear that more and more NGOs are going into it, and more need to go into it. I think that I need to advocate that for those of us who will become wealthy, that we should think about it. Some of our monies should go into things like this, where we are funding, because that's how the Western world grows. All right, so people are actively seeking ways to bridge the gaps and to break down the barriers. All right, so I think these are things that we should do. So I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, you've actually said a lot on, and that's it actually. Stigmatization is just something that is very common in our society, and we stigmatize on virtually anything. So, but focusing on sickle cell, what are those bases? Okay, we have mates, they don't grow old. They are maybe 10 years old, 21 years old. Okay, last week I was 40.
Oh, wow.
So last week. So we have people in their 50s, we have people in their 60s, we have people in their 70s. The oldest person that lived with sickle cell, died at 94. She's a Nigerian.
Live long.
So you can live long, and okay, they don't marry. We have people who are married. We have people who have twins. We have people, so they are living life. Okay, what do they not do? They don't travel. We have a lot of people outside in the country. They are doing great things. So the question of stigma should not arise, actually. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. So, and that's where information, that's where programs like this, that's where it comes in. When people hear it again and hear it again and hear it again. How did we learn ABC? It was because of repetition. Yes. So please, let's just keep repeating it until we get to that position that we don't talk about stigma any longer.
So I want to ask, does it get better with age?
Does it get better with age?
Yeah.
Okay, so you live with sickle cell all your life. It doesn't change. Okay, except if you have a miracle cell, but we are going to confirm that very well before. Okay. Okay, so does it get better with age? Well, maybe you, as you grow older, you begin to know your triggers. As a child, you don't know anything, you are just playing all around. But now I know that, okay, if I see this, this is what it means. I need to do this and all of that. So, but as you also grow older, you also know to also visit your doctors regularly. As we age, there are some complications that may arise. So if you are well informed, you get to your doctors and tell them, oh, doctor, I'm feeling like this. What do you think? And all of that. So you know that we have specialists called hematologists. So you don't just visit a general practitioner now. You go to a hematologist and you find time to do these visits regularly. So they begin to monitor you well. So maybe that's why we say it gets better with it. But basically, it doesn't mean that you won't have crisis. You can do all this that you want to do. Crisis can still come up once in a while.
But you know better as
But you know
you
better.
age.
Yes.
Wow. Do you have any last words that you might want to?
Well, for me, I think that I would encourage everyone, once again, live life right. Visit your doctor. I'd also say get an HMO plan. We were discussing just outside of the studio, and we said, oh, why do HMOs hesitate? The reality is, you are not just sickle cell. So even if you have an HMO that says, for now, we will not be able to manage your sickle cell condition, have them for when you have malaria. Have them for when you are pregnant. Have them for when you have optical issues, so that your cost is better managed. Again, because funding is a major challenge that has to be dealt with. So I would encourage, and of course I work with GNI Healthcare, so, but I would encourage that. I would encourage it strongly. I would also say that keep fighting, keep believing. I like miracles. Keep believing. Keep believing, because again, miracles happen with doctors. Miracles don't necessarily mean you see a bright light somewhere and all those kind of gimmicks and all of that. Miracles also deal with, you got to the hospital, you called an ambulance, the ambulance came on time. You called a friend, the friend came on time.
That the doctor even knows what to do.
These are all miracles, and we need to applaud all of them and expect them.
All right, thank you very much. It was an educative time here. And you know, for us here in Lagos, we have the Ilera Eco Health Insurance Scheme, and the state government is doing a lot to make life better for.
We actually have a large number of people on Ilera Eco currently.
That's great. So kudos to the state government. We've been discussing sickle cell treatment and management, and we have Abayomi Oyelami, Communication Officer, Sickle Cell Advocacy and Management Initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And also Dr. Frank Ehalufo, Chief Operating Officer, GNI Healthcare Limited. I got it.
Yes, you did.
So I took my time. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
Pleasure.
The conversation continues after this. Stay with us.
Let the conversation continue.